everybody? Real with Omar. New episode. I'm here with my boy Carlos Figarella. He flew in from Texas just for this podcast. Not really, but I'm just going to say it that way. Carlos, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Omar. Appreciate you having me on and excited to rap with you.
Oh, we have a lot to talk about, man. But first off, originally from Texas.
No.
Let's get the origin story going on.
Origin, man. Similar to you, born on the island.
Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
Okay.
born in Rio Piedras.
Okay.
And then from there, at the age of 5, my father and my family, we migrated to the States. My father was in the military, so we moved around a lot. I've lived East Coast, up and down. I lived in Europe for a few years, but
Wow.
the longest place I've ever lived is New York City. So that's home. That's where I went.
What years, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, from 2009 to 2018.
Okay, so you just recently left.
Recently.
Right? Yeah. Okay. And you're living in Texas now.
Living in Texas. Fun story to share.
Sure.
During the pandemic, my wife and I,
You were in New York? No, you were in New York. During the pandemic.
we were living on the West Coast. We were living in Seattle. I'd taken a role out there, moved out to Seattle, and then the pandemic hit. We were far as hell from home.
Right.
It fell even further during the pandemic. So we sold our house, packed up our stuff in a U-Haul, and we became nomads for 18 months.
Really?
We lived Airbnbs. We kicked it with abuela for a few months. We were just everywhere trying to
All over the States.
all over.
That's dope.
Yeah, we shipped one of our cars to the East Coast. We drove the other one down the West Coast. So anyways, all that to say that originally from Puerto Rico, New York is home. This is where I grew up, and I'm excited to be back here and being on your podcast.
Excited to have you, man. Excited to have you. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about your background, because it got me talking, and we're gonna, as we start doing the little timeline event with you, I'll stop at every dynamic event that I identified, and I want to talk about it because I think so many things are being done right now, and they have so many new terms for things, but what people don't understand is a lot of these methods and not theologies, but rather practices have been done for years. Just didn't have a name, right?
Sure.
Like we call it a vibe, and then now it's customer experience. Like, so go back with me. You first started in tech. You got into beats. I know that part.
Yeah,
right?
so I'll kind of share that story.
Yeah, please.
Graduated college. I went to Coastal Carolina University. Graduated with Dustin Johnson for all my golf fans out there. So when I graduated college, I was scrappy. I was working my way, hustling in college. I would cut hair, bartend, do taxes. I had a bunch of different ways of getting it. And I had an opportunity. I was bartending at Hard Rock at the time. And when I graduated, my wife and I had met.
In college?
At the time I was dating, and we're like, hey, we got to get out of here.
Okay.
Let's go to New York City. So we moved to New York. Here I am coming in a big city, think I got my degree. Anyone's going to hire me.
Open the doors for you.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
It was 2009, right when the
market crashed.
The market crashed, and here I am competing for entry-level jobs with people that have 10 plus years of experience.
Right.
So
have the masters, the PhDs, because everybody was looking.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And I got hit with reality really quick. I immediately started going to what I knew, hustling. How do I get my way into the industry and the market that I want to be in? Tech was super competitive, and at that time, it was just, there was no way getting in terms of someone fresh out of college and someone that had no experience, no background, and just hopes and dreams.
No in, right? Because most people, they live within their tribes, and they study coding. They're going to a tech job. What did you study in school?
Yeah, so I studied sales and marketing. I got a bachelor's degree in business administration, and I studied marketing. So coming out, I was like, yeah, I'm ready. I've learned everything, and realized I learned nothing. And I land here. I've got this job. We were bartending in Times Square, and I realized that I kept getting rejection email after rejection email, and that's where I then started trying to forge my way into things. I got an insurance job, so I got some licenses to sell insurance, and I quickly realized that wasn't for me.
Okay.
What
didn't you like about that? Just because I've had people in that business on my show.
It was just mundane to me,
okay,
to be quite honest with you. And it was just a paper pusher job. If you look at the industry, how it's promoted, I can save you money. but people don't realize that that comes at a cost, right? You're increasing your risk, or you may be, trying to save money here, but it's going to cost you somewhere else, that kind of thing. And I'm just very factual and trying to help people. And I realized I couldn't help people when they're coming in here trying to reduce their costs, but take on more risk.
Okay.
And also talking to people about life insurance and those other things just felt it was too morbid.
Yeah, I was going to go with the word morbid. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
And so, funny enough, that's how I met Fernando, who you recently met.
Okay. Is he in life insurance?
He was at the time. That's how we met. We hit it off, and that's little bro to me now. Okay. So, from there, I realized that, okay, I'm in sales for an insurance company. I got to start networking. I've got to start building relationships, and it started kind of getting associations with groups and things like that. But I realized that it wasn't getting me to where I wanted to go, and I didn't want to do insurance for very much longer.
Okay.
It got to the point I was stressed out about it.
Getting anxiety from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So from there, I realized that a skill set that I had that I was not necessarily aware of at the time was I'm a social, outgoing person, really good at networking. So I reached out to my alumni association and identified, hey, who's in the area? How can we network? At the time, our baseball team started doing really well. So I started setting up events.
Okay.
And we would have watch parties and alumni meetups. And after I started hitting a stride in cadence, I was able to then land a big annual meetup where the president of the university flew in and he brought influential people with him.
Right.
Absolutely.
An official meetup.
At this point, someone knew I was doing something and they wanted to understand what, how, and why, and how they can help fan those flames.
Okay.
And I, from there, created this big meetup, had the president come in, and I met some people there that really helped mentor me and started to give me some of that foundation. After that, I networked into meeting someone who could then, they helped me get a marketing job. Mm-hmm. And I was able to then, I would bartend at night, work the kind of entry-level marketing role, and it was with Google. And it was a contractor temp job, but it was enough of a foundation to learn the ins and outs. And I was
just step in right into that world.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I was like, I'm here to learn the game. I'm here to absorb as much as I can and also generate a network within this group of people to, take this to the next level. Mm-hmm. That ended up turning into a role with HTC, which we talked about a little bit.
Which is now, does it still exist?
It does exist,
okay.
yeah. And
as
actually,
what though?
So they have pivoted from
hold on. Hey, boys and girls. So HTC was a cell phone company back in the early 2000s?
It was from early 2000s to about 2015.
2015. So it was kind of popping before the iPhone came and destroyed everybody. But it was like if you had a HTC or a BlackBerry, you were kind of doing something, right? Okay,
yeah.
just a little teachable moment right there.
Yeah, and I joined the company right as they were peaking towards their highest market share dominance.
Okay.
And over that time, again, learned valuable skill sets, lessons, networked. And during that, I was like, okay, I'm in tech. I've broken into something that I've always
wanted to be in.
Mm-hmm. I found interest in this. And it really started to feel like a career and a home. And granted, I was still hustling. Mm-hmm. I was still working my 9 to 5 at HTC or the marketing role. And then I would bartend at night.
Okay.
Sometimes I'd be coming home with the equivalent of my 2-week paycheck in my pocket.
From one night.
Wow. And I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
And then from there, I started getting into contracting a little bit and doing some other side gigs to really, New York, you got to make it. Mm-hmm. And I would always say, you step outside, it's $100 easily, right?
Yeah, to walk outside, absolutely, easy.
And so I just started taking that hustle mindset that I've always known, right? I've been pushing the lawnmower since 11. So when them East Bays would come in, I knew I had to get those.
East Bays. Yeah.
And now
so many good references right now.
Yes. Okay. And now, in my early to mid 20s, I'm in New York and I'm like, I got to get it.
Yeah.
So as I progressed in that role with HTC, I kind of saw the writing on the wall. iPhone launched, it broke out from AT&T and it started coming to T-Mobile and Verizon.
Started gobbling everybody up.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And this was a $500 phone when it first dropped. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I remember people showing me, I'm going to get the iPhone. I'm like, $500? You bugging. But
yeah. And that's what it was, because the and this is like the inner network of that industry, the community, the way that those smartphone manufacturers operated at the time, they would go to AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, and they would sell them exclusivity on
so they could push their units.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
Right. They would sell them exclusivity on a specific brand, color, or excuse me, not brand, but like a model or a color. And when the iPhone and that exclusivity with AT&T broke, then they were able to take that same device and sell it anywhere.
Right.
And so that's when really the smartphone industry kind of changed, because these other OEMs didn't have the brand identity or, that continuity.
You said OEM. Please explain what that is.
It's original equipment manufacturer.
There you go. Because I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as we saw that evolve, I knew something was changing, and I could see the market shifting. Right now, we're getting in from early adopters to the late laggers. Right, we're seeing that market share is starting to get stagnant, and I had an opportunity to go work for a marketing company at the time, and really take this small project that they were working on and grow it from a small 6-figure opportunity into a multi-million-dollar contract. And the client was Beats.
Beats by Dre, guys. Beats by Dre. I know it's owned by Apple now, but it was Beats by Dre.
Absolutely. And I was in that whole kind of mix at that time, where they had, funny enough, HTC helped them when they divorced Monster.
Okay.
Right. So not to get into the inner workings of that, but Monster was manufacturing and producing all of the Beats products.
Okay. Monster Cable.
Yep,
right?
Monster Cable.
Monster Cable.
Yep.
Guys, Monster Cable.
And so when they separated from that partnership, HTC helped take on some of that manufacturing, and they bought in 51% of the company at the time.
Okay.
Right. And what happened was that at the time, Jason McKenzie was my president for North America. He got a board seat on the Beats board. And so I was always intrigued and always interested to learn the inner workings and of the relationship and those things.
How does this work, right? This whole monster company. Yeah, absolutely.
And so at this point now, I've got an opportunity to go be work for a marketing company that is supporting their growth and their expansion. Mm-hmm. And at the time, they were looking to expand their retail footprint. They were at a position where they were now moving away from the HTC relationship. They had just received funding from the Carlyle Group, this was the first time the Carlyle Group has ever invested into a retail brand.
Okay.
They're investing in, rocket ships and big things.
So is the Carlyle Group a venture capital group?
They are.
All right. So guys, another teachable moment. Venture capital firms are firms that manage money. And if you present an idea for a commodity or for any type of business, if they decide to fund you, they give you a whole bunch of money, and I guess they get a percentage, right?
Yeah, okay. They get equity.
Yeah,
and the whole goal is that then they're working on a timeline, right? To get that return on that investment, right? Yeah. And ultimately, it ended up working very favorable for the Carlyle Group and the Beats C-level. So I come into this opportunity, and I remember we were talking a little bit about this. The gentleman that interviewed me, I really bought into him. I was taking, a lot of insecurity about the role, the opportunity, the timeline, everything. But something about that person who ended up becoming a mentor was, hey, I'm not going to bet on anything but you.
Right.
And the same thing, I remember telling him in my interview with him, I said, hey, you'll interview people with more experience, more capabilities, but I've got the will. Mm-hmm. I will learn. I've got the discipline and the interest, and I will out hustle anybody. And he bought into that, really did. Okay. And from there, I was able to take that role with him within months, start to kind of earn some more of their business and some more of their contracts. Where at one point we were doing about $4 million with Beats as a supplier and as a contractor for them. Okay. And what we did is that we stood up some of their retail operations and some of the retail experiences. And this gets into some of the discussions we had around, how do we create a brand experience that mirrors the brand image and what they're actually conveying to consumers. And this was across the Beats store, which was in Soho, as well as their Best Buy partnership. And we looked at expanding that into Target, AT&T, and others. And we created this Beats experience that people just gravitated to.
Can you break that out or no?
Yeah, we can go into details.
Absolutely.
There.
No,
yeah.
what? Because here you go. You're a pretty new technology, or not? You're a new product in a technology space. But I could think about 5 other guys that were there before you. I could think about Bose. I could think about Soundwave. There's so many. So how did you create something that made it more appealing to buy something Beats? And then eventually the question is going to be, how'd you get Apple to buy it? But that's another question.
Yeah.
How did you get that person to go from maybe a brand that was more established, but maybe seen a certain way, compared to seeing Beats, which may have been seen as a little hip hop? So how'd you pivot that?
So one thing that, again, the Beats team was really good at was lifestyle marketing.
Okay.
And this is before my time, right? They were starting to build that momentum, but
they had the blueprint already, and they were moving with it. Yeah.
And I was coming into a point where I saw the smartphone era boom, and I was riding that momentum. Now I'm seeing what we call the connected accessory market start to shift in that direction, because everybody has the phones. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a phone. So now you
need to plug in.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so what happened was that Beats was really good at lifestyle marketing. They would not only get artists, athletes, and influencers before influencers was even a thing.
Right. Before you knew what you were doing.
Yeah. To sponsor the brand. But they were even at one point paying for the fines that these artists or that these athletes were getting.
So they could wear them. You guys, I don't know if you were part of this, in the Olympics.
The Olympics, all of that.
All the players, the basketball players were wearing the Beat, all the athletes in total.
All of them.
Right.
And so I came in right at the point where the Power Beats, so we had a decent portfolio of products, right? I came in right when the Studio 2 released. If you remember, big commercial with Eminem.
Studio 2 were the big earmuffs.
Yep.
Right.
So
and the Power Beats are the ones that actually went in the ear.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So essentially, they had a portfolio at the time of on-ear, over-ear headphones, in-ear, right? And then they had the speakers, the Beats Pill.
Right.
And so
correct me if I'm wrong, were they the first guys on the scene with a speaker?
They weren't, but they were the first on the scene to make them kind of widely accessible.
Okay.
Right? I think at that point, again, smartphone accessory was booming.
Right.
People needed things to connect to,
right.
And at that point, you can pair the two Beats pills together so you can get more sound.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
So they really took what is a common basic concept and applied marketing and lifestyle marketing around it. Mm-hmm. And it just, from there, it took off.
To go from there. Okay.
And so I came in right around the time that the Studio 2 released. And that was a big deal because if you remember the original studios, they were wired, they were bulky. Yeah. People in New York were getting robbed for them, right?
I remember that. Yep.
And so now the Studio 2 comes out, sleek, clean. It's the studio design that we know today.
Yeah, smaller.
And so we were creating this brand experience around it. So when my boss and my mentor at the time came in, he was like, hey, one of the things that I sold them on is making the brand experience mirror what they're presenting to consumers. Okay. So we need to go get people that look like the brand.
Right.
We need to create an experience that is far beyond anything that you would expect out of walking into a retail store. And at that time, I had, worked my network to identify people that fit that brand, that could, mirror what people were seeing on TV, and when they came into the store, it looked like it. So I went out and I started finding people within my network, and I would bring in artists and just people that could really deliver that experience. Right. That's where people like Punchline, who's a New York hip hop legend, right? He just got on the new Busta Rhymes album.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Right. And so he had him come in to do, to help out. I had my boy Maintain, who's an artist, come in, and we started to create that experience so that when people came in, they felt like they walked into this, just
like a recording studio.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
An artist is here.
Yeah, and it got to the point where we were getting exposure in places, in ways we didn't expect. This started gravitating towards athletes coming in and coming into our experience. And, we'd engage with people internationally, and people would be getting, at this point, Instagram had just kind of taken off.
Right.
People were getting tagged internationally on this. And it was really an exciting atmosphere that we created. And it was really justified the moment where I got the text of, hey, it was a Sunday morning, and my boss / mentor texts me. He's like, "Hey, I'm hearing that Jimmy Iovine is in New York, in Manhattan, and he's dead set on visiting one of these in-store experiences."
Okay.
He's like, "You got to get down there."
You got the call. I
got the call. I was like, "All right, cool." And at this time, I wasn't feeling great. I was just like, but we got to be there.
Yeah, you got to show up when it counts. That's it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So we head down, and sure enough, after maybe 2-3 hours of me sitting there, making sure got the team prepped, everything's ready, here comes Jimmy Iovine. Walks in. Baseball hat.
Yeah.
My man looked G'd up, looking clean. And he had kind of walked around throughout the whole experience, and you could just, you could start to see the look on his face. And he's a man of very few words. And by granted, this is one of very few interactions I had with him, and the only one in person.
Okay.
And Jimmy walks in, and he's looking around, and he sees we're playing music, we got a vibe, everything is really on brand, on point. I start walking him through how our operations work, telling him, all of the details and the inner workings of how we're delivering on the promise we made. And you could just see he was like, hey, super pleased with it. He's looking around, he's like, hey, thank you. Just kind of gives a thank you. He's like, I could see the energy.
Feel validated at that moment?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
And granted, man of very few words. So he was taking it all in. But to see that response and that reaction, I felt validated for sure, because I had put a lot of effort in the details and the overall how I could elevate the experience to the next level. And I mean, granted, out of these 3 stores, we were doing millions of dollars in product, and to know that we were driving that in Manhattan in such a kind of, the spotlight was on us, is the best way of saying it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And here comes the big dog.
You were the flagship, man. You were the frontiersman.
Yeah.
You guys opened it up, and you showed this is the template. This is how we're going to make it happen. The numbers became such a thing that somebody had to fly in to make sure what's happening. How's this happening? Because they're going to try to replicate it.
Yeah.
It's just the truth, right? They want your success to be everywhere, right? So they have to come see it. They have to come touch it, taste it, and understand it.
Yeah. And it was, from my perspective, the look, feel was there, but I brought the energy. My team brought the energy, and I think that was the differentiation. So at that point, the deal's in the works, and we're trying to take the contract to the next level with our marketing firm, and we start to get it starts to get stale, right? We're not getting responses.
Okay.
And then that's
things done changed up.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're getting these red flags, and we're trying to read into it. And that's when the Tyrone, what's his name? I forget the name of the artist who he leaked the video with him and Dre. He's like, you're talking to the hip hop's first billionaire.
Oh, when they sold.
Right. And this was 3 months before the deal's even done.
Right.
And so it put everything install, and we're trying to take the experience to the next level, but now we see why we're not getting the phone calls back. And then that's when the Beats deal solidifies. Now they're part of Apple, and essentially everything changed.
Right.
We could sense that what we've been doing is being evaluated.
Right.
This whole marketing firm is kind of under a microscope of what we're providing and what experience and value we're providing.
Right.
Especially when you've got Apple coming in, who at the time was, hundreds of billions.
Juggernaut.
Yeah, juggernaut.
Yeah.
And so slowly, a few months after that, the contract was not renewed, and things kind of were winding down.
Okay.
And that's super sad for me because I had put a lot of effort and experience into this.
A lot of yourself into it. Right?
100%. Because I identified with the brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a hip hop head,
Yep.
right? I'm all about lifestyle, culture, and I felt that this was the inner workings of my personal life, my professional life, kind of hitting an inflection point.
Right.
And I was like, nothing that I did right or wrong was going into the decision that was being made.
Right. You had no control. That's at that point, it's how you feel, even though you probably poured yourself into something. And a lot of it resonates with you because it is you.
Yes.
Right. And the perspective you have is truly individual and unique because, like you said, this is my life. I'm a hip hop head. Sneaker. We could tie it all in. And I think Apple just, not that they won, but they don't care because they're dealing with a different type of dollar. They're just going to keep pouring and keep pouring. And, but it takes away from the uniqueness. It's almost, it almost to me felt like Beats should have become almost like a supreme part of Apple. You know what I'm saying? Not totally incorporate into it, but I don't know I don't know if you track it, what kind of relevance it has today. Are they still killing it? Because I don't see it like that.
Yeah, it's become it's definitely dwarfed from a market share and from a priority perspective for Apple.
And do you think Apple bought that? And again, we can get sued. I don't care. Do you think Apple bought it to shelve it? Because that becomes the big question.
No, I think that the geniuses that were on the business side of Beats were really the drivers of that decision. They saw an opportunity.
Right.
And
they didn't know what they were giving up.
Yes.
Right, for the price.
And also I think that the Carlyle Group had a lot of influence.
They want to get paid.
They wanted to get paid.
Yeah.
They had,
51% share.
Yeah, there was a big, I would say, big pot stewed there between, what was happening in the market at the time, what were some of the economics behind it, and what opportunity they saw. To this point, right, Beats is really, again, I think the AirPods are doing, they're doing tens of billions of dollars.
Monster numbers. Yep, without a doubt. But that's their flagship product because it's an Apple product.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so all that to say that, I saw this opportunity in front of me that I had this, something I was so proud of, kind of starting to just get ripped out of my hands.
Yeah.
And that's when I randomly got a phone call from some of the contacts that I worked with over there.
At Beats.
Okay. And they were like, hey, we loved working with you. You were such a vital piece of our operations. We'd love for you to come work with us direct.
Where at?
At Beats.
Okay.
Right. And so here I am. I thought
So you were that's right. You were at the marketing company, in charge of distribution and client acquisition. And now Beats is reaching out to you directly.
Yes.
But your boy got the chair seat over there, right?
Well, that
your mentor slash.
Well, that was a different kind of business mentor, right?
Okay.
Like someone else. So there was a few layers there of who and how, but at this point, this was just me, like off of my own will and capability. They're calling me to say, hey, all of that was great. We don't want it anymore, but we need you on this side.
Okay.
And so what happened was that I joined the NPI team, new product introduction team.
Okay.
Right. And so they were handling essentially marketing and training for their retail partners.
Okay.
And at that point, I got the opportunity. I was like, yes. I was like to this point, man, it meant so much to me. I've saved the voicemail to this day, right?
Really?
She called me at 8 p.m. at night. I was like, I was asking my wife, I was like, do I call her back? I'm like, she sounds like she's out and about. She's like, call her.
Right.
So I remember it was a Thursday night. I called her back. I was like, yes, I'd love to do this. I'm like, when do you need me? She's like, can you fly out on Tuesday? I'm like, tomorrow's Friday.
4 days, you mean?
Yeah. She's like, yeah, we need you in Vegas. We've got something big going on there. There's a big retail summit that Best Buy puts on. Right. And it's essentially they bring in all their sales leaders prior to the holiday season kicking off, the holiday summit.
To prime them
up.
Right.
They're like, hey, we'd love for you to come down there and help us put this all together. So of course I said yes. hop on it. Let's do this. Like, how quickly can we get paperwork done? Like,
Right.
you know, and we did it. And it became an experience of a lifetime for me, because at that point we set out. I had the opportunity with the NPI team to take this brand that was Beats and now introduce it as part of the Apple ecosystem to all of their retail partners. We're talking Best Buy, AT&T, Verizon.
So basically the door's open already. You just got to show the value of your product.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
And it was really interesting because how we were able to deliver that message and that experience was what I became a part of. So we got, internal budget to do a 56 market tour. And what we would do is we would ship either a Apple Store setup. It looked just like the Apple Store. Set up tables, devices, everything. And we would have the retail partners come in, we train them. From there, they would get hands-on demos and experiences, and or we would ship. We had a shipping container, and so at every stop, I had my boy Jonah. Shout out to Jonah. He was my DJ. He used to be. He was on the marketing team.
Okay.
Right at Beats, but then came on board for this role to essentially create that experience of
be an in-house DJ.
Yeah, in-house DJ where we're creating this vibe and experience. He would DJ, I would bring in the reps, train them on our product, walk them through kind of a presentation on stage, give them hands-on demo experience, and then we would create incentives for them to go out and sell. They would either get, a contest or something there so that it was measured on the effectiveness of it. And 52 markets. So we were everywhere, name it. I went to Puerto Rico.
Nice.
We were, East Coast, West Coast, all in between. And it really helped me. It filled all the buckets for me. I identified with the brand. I was passionate about the brand. I was doing something I was really good at, capable of, which was training and providing an experience. But also I love traveling.
Okay.
So now I'm traveling everywhere, and yeah, that went on for like a year and a half. So in total, it was about 3 years working for them or with them.
Okay.
And that's where I really kind of taking it back to where we started. I forged my way into tech, but here I am doing something I'm super passionate and just, excited about. And then that's when, at the time, my mentor calls me and was like, hey, I got something else. It's like,
okay.
This
The guy originally from Beats. The guy originally from the marketing company.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
He calls you up. He says, hey, Carlos, you busy?
Yeah. You busy? And he had known, like, they had taken me direct. He had known all, like, we'd always, always talking.
It was transparent. Right.
Yeah. And I remember we were at my wedding, and I was getting texts, and he was throwing some names out there. I was just like, oh yeah. I was like, are you interviewing there? I was like, yeah. Like you're talking about, like these are the leaders over there. You talking to them?
Right.
He's like, yeah. And so what happened was, at that time, he got the opportunity to launch a new emerging market, a new category, and an opportunity that has taken my career to where it is today.
Okay.
And essentially, he took on the head of sales role for a virtual reality company.
Okay.
And this was back then. There was mobile VR.
Right.
You could remember the Samsungs. You could put it in the headset
put it on top of your stuff. Yeah.
But people were getting sick. People didn't. It was more of a marketing play to get people to buy the new phone than it was a really seamless.
Right. That's you slide the phone into it. Right. I remember that one. Yeah.
It wasn't really a premium experience.
Okay.
And the reason why is that the chipsets and the technology was not right there for that kind of experience. But at this point, they were starting to build PC-based VR, where you could take, at the time, a 900 or 1000 series graphics card and create high-quality rendered images and introduce yourself into these immersive worlds. And I couldn't pass that up. I couldn't pass up the opportunity to go work with someone who was so vital to my career and had helped me grow professionally, personally. So I had to jump all over it.
Okay, you're like, all right, I'm out, Beats.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so from there, that's where I, my wife and I, we moved to Seattle.
Okay.
We packed everything up. At this point, we're talking 2017 transitioning into 2018. I was bi-coastal for about 6 months of those, of that time frame. But I knew that this was going to be the technology that would just revolutionize not only, entertainment, but also I saw the opportunity outside of entertainment into, business and other areas of development, right? Like whether it's STEM with education or a few other areas that I can kind of hone in on and tell you about. But essentially that was the opportunity for me to go.
You saw the possibilities for the technology, right?
100%.
Yeah. And you're like, I'm in. I want to see it.
Yeah.
I want to see it develop. I want to be like almost like a father, like something that's bringing it up, right? Like one of the guys at the frontier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where the last, what's that? It's been 7 going on 8 years that I've been working in, is really in this emerging category, bringing VR and AR to market. And how I've essentially now I'm mostly focused on the future of work and bringing this technology to companies that are using this, whether they're looking train, doing simulations, collaboration. There's so many possibilities within the category,
right?
And it's a nascent market. So a lot of this is continuously evolving, and that was just really at the core foundation. But since those few core years of PC-based VR, we're starting to see wireless and mobile, what we call mobile experiences that are really helping people adopt the technology and embrace it because it's more accessible.
Right. Well, what are those goggles that everybody's wearing now with the 2 things?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So
what are those? Those are
the MetaQuest.
Are they MetaQuest? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The MetaQuest is the most accessible product in market today.
Okay.
The most successful one, right?
Okay.
In terms of market reach. And when you look at just where that technology is driving adoption, it's in entertainment for sure. You look at gaming and being able to think about The Sims. The Sims was such a popular game. People loved it, but it was 2D and you're sitting here controlling someone on a screen. Living a secondary life. But imagine being first person view of that person's world.
Now you're immersed. Right.
Now you're immersed.
Right.
And so, I jumped into that opportunity and we did some amazing things. We partnered with the launch of Ready Player One, if you remember that movie.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
Yeah.
Great movie, yeah.
Yeah, shout out to the marketing team that put together this great experience in Austin. And we were doing all these big things to get the technology to resonate with people. And so some of that core, sales and marketing efforts that we did at that time really were helping me grow as a marketer, as a salesperson, and just understanding how do you bring new technology to people that don't know how to embrace it. They don't know how to implement it. They don't know the true potential of it.
Right. And the other question becomes, how do you acquire customers that maybe they feel like they're happy where they're at, right? Like, I don't want to know about that. I want to do this. This is what I do. This is what I do. I don't do that. How do you get them to embrace it, right? And maybe adopt it?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you look at everything that I've said and how my career progressed, truly, I'm a learner. And that's taught me to be an educator.
Right.
I educate people on where things are going, how to understand how technology will impact their lives, their business, and their community in that, call it 2 to 10 year time frame, right?
Right.
And understand that being a first mover or first adopter in this technology will help you understand the potential of it and grow that skill set and that, that core competency within either yourself or your organization and leverage it, whether it's at scale or it's just in, pilot small steps, baby steps to get there. And really it comes down to at where we're at in business, it's like you have to be a first mover.
Yeah. I say that all the time. You got to be first. You want to be the best. Just be there first.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's really what that opportunity for me was to be first, be there. And now we're seeing adoption really starting to scale. We're seeing businesses evolve in their practices whether they're looking to, take collaboration. People are collaborating on 2D screens
all day.
There's Zoom fatigue, call them Zoombies, whatever you want to call them, right? Like it has an impact. It's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can either, interact with the Brady Bunch all day with the, 6 to 8 boxes.
Or Hollywood Squares. Remember that show?
Yeah.
Hollywood Squares. That's what I called it the other day. Yeah.
Or you could invest in this technology and feel their presence and feel more connected using more of your senses to interact. And that really took, true to form when the pandemic hit. And here I am, we're all at home.
You were working on that during the pandemic?
Yes.
Okay.
So when the pandemic hit, we were all at home and we were, I'm talking to colleagues globally, right? France, Germany, and they're telling me their unique experiences. They got to get a card to go to the grocery store, and we're all comparing notes and we're like, okay, great. Well, we need to leverage this technology to help us feel more connected. And of course we had access to it. So we were doing that.
Were you able to use it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. We, at that time, like right after the pandemic launched, right when it happened.
Right when it was released to stores.
Yeah. Right when the pandemic happened, we had already started developing some software at the time. It was called Vive Sync, where you could have people meet in VR.
Okay.
And it was a first party application that we were working on and building. And we were all advocating of like, hey, we need to get this out
now.
Yeah. Even if it's in beta,
right.
Get it out so that people can understand the potential of this.
And people will adopt it, especially now since they have no choice, right? What's the other choice? Either Zoom or nothing.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. And of course, I mean, Zoom did its thing, right?
Yeah.
Zoom became Zoom in that time frame.
Right.
And we had the opportunity to kind of introduce our tools and our hardware and software as a similar platform to meet. And I would start shipping the product out to customers or to partners and hosting meetings in virtual reality.
Oh.
And people were just blown away by the technology. And it also helped us learn more about how do we help others deploy and digest this into their day-to-day.
Listen, you had a captive audience, which you never have. So a pandemic is definitely a place to deploy new one-on-one interpersonal technology, because there's limited, and people are desperate. People get desperate for something because they're missing a lot, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it became really like, it defined product market fit for one of the use cases that technology is known for today.
Okay.
Collaboration, again, companies spend millions of dollars on tools, software, and other methods of collaborating. Training and immersive learning. When you start a new job, first thing they do is they train you
for 2 weeks. Yeah, absolutely.
And what's really interesting about this immersive technology, whether it's VR or AR, is the opportunity that you can replicate the training in a synthetic environment and not have those catastrophic losses. If you're training a pilot, for instance, right? Give you a problem and a solution. Right now, there's a pilot shortage. The reason is that training to become a pilot is resource intense. It takes time, and there's a lot of hoops to jump through. Plus, you've got to get to a point where then you can get into the plane, and there's a lot of training and classwork that goes into that.
On top of that, right?
Yep.
Right.
So one of the things that we were doing is we're working with the military and DOD, whether it's the Navy, the Air Force, so on. They were realizing that a flight simulator is millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
It's not mobile, and
you have to go to that.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a bottleneck.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get people to that location, to do the flight training, to do all these things, where now I can deploy VR training simulation for pilots, And that is totally scalable. We're talking about, tens of thousands of dollars versus one machine that costs millions of dollars.
Right.
And the military was already in a position where they were having, pilot shortages, and they were seeing one of the bottlenecks was the training. All of a sudden we started seeing this just spike in demand for our product because we knew that they could train faster, more efficient. Plus they were leveraging eye tracking as a way to then coach, mentor, and help refine their training. So you could see what they're looking at. You can measure what they're looking at and why and how, and give all of those.
That's streaming by eye tracking.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So give you an example. In 2018, at our CES booth, we had the Air Force there in a flight simulator booth showing off flight simulation software, but then with our eye tracking that was embedded into the hardware, you could then heat map and detect where they're looking at and when.
Mm.
So I got in, I put it on, flying this F-16, and I'm looking everywhere. I'm like, oh, right?
The birds.
Yeah. Then this pilot gets in, dead set, locked in. He's got this just total control over what he's looking at.
Tunnel vision thing, right?
This tunnel vision. He's got that flow state.
Right.
And you could see, oh, okay, I would not be a good pilot.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking for.
Yes, but this, and so that helps them identify, the efficacy of their training and refine some of their processes and help scale out some of these training centers that were at one point it was just a $1 million flight simulator and nothing else.
Right. And you had to get everybody to fly down wherever they were going to make sure, get in line. Then you have to clean out the simulator. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about during pandemic time. So everything was crazy. So yeah, or did you guys deploy that during the pandemic?
That was before, during, and after. Yeah.
Okay.
This is a big initiative from the government to again, meet a problem that they have where they can't.
And you're saying the government, so this is only for for pilots that fly for the Air Force, the Navy, the Army.
Yeah.
We're not talking about airplanes, regular airplanes.
But we're starting to see it in commercial plane.
Are we? Okay.
Yep. And because at the end of the day, you could at your own home,
right,
do some of this training. This is accessible to consumers as well as commercial customers and government, public sector customers.
Yeah.
So this is an opportunity to get that experience before spending tens of thousands of dollars to go to flight school if you're looking to do commercial flight, become a commercial pilot.
Right.
So it's one of those where you start to see the benefits and it's scaled. And then from there, after working for that VR company, I went to go work for an augmented reality company, which is where I previously was. And that really helped me understand the full scope of where this technology is going.
Okay.
People talk about buzzwords, the metaverse, Web3, all these things. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, the metaverse is like the internet. Mm-hmm. The internet is a lot of things to a lot of people.
Right. Depends on who you talk to.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
And so the metaverse is truly going to be how we interact with the internet in a more immersive, scalable way. And when I worked at this augmented reality company called Magic Leap, I was able to get hands-on experience with the best augmented reality technology in the market, and really understanding that where we're going with this technology is overlaying data on top of the physical world.
Mm. Can you give me another example of that?
Yeah.
Just for the people that can't like, you kind of spoke a little too much tech. So we want people to apply and understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. We're surrounded by data. We just are. Right. Whether it's math, physics, there's a lot that's going on, and we live mostly outside of our phones and some of this technology in an analog world.
In an analog world. Wow. Okay.
And so augmented reality, once it becomes mass adopted, will become a tool that will help us really start to analyze the world and overlay data on top of it. Let's say, I'll give you an example. When you go to do, when a doctor, right, does surgery, mm-hmm. they are looking at their patient. They're operating on their patient, but they have like multiple monitors up top, right? And as they're doing these precision surgeries or these procedures, they are operating or doing the procedure, but then they have to look up. And what if that data could be overlaid on top of the patient? What if...
With glasses.
With glasses.
Right, I understand what you're saying. Okay.
What if the CAT scan, their vitals, everything was accessible and visible while you're doing the procedure? What if you're putting a catheter in and you could see the catheter as you're moving through the body, but you understand the way that it's going?
It's supposed to go.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, I get it. I'll give you a little touch on that, right? So I had a procedure in March, hip replacements. So the doctor does the operation first virtually with the computer.
Yes.
Right. They do all the measurements and all that, and then he actually does it. So what you're saying is you don't have to do the first part. You overlay them. You're doing it real time.
Yeah.
Right? The computer's telling you, all right, this is the type of width you need, and make everything on spot and kind of be a little more efficient, right? Not less steps.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And let me kind of take all of what I've said and put it into context to what you've mentioned. Mm-hmm. Everyone has to train and simulate for whatever they're like what they should be doing, right? Like a doctor has to simulate the operation.
Yeah, because that's what they do.
Right. And so imagine being able to do that in virtual reality. You've got, a patient, you understand the procedure, you go step by step, you start to build that muscle memory.
The reps, right? You're talking about doing the reps.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then that is in a synthetic environment. When you move to the operating room, now you're using that information in augmented reality. So then now you're driving the efficacy and enhancing the procedure real time. Mm-hmm. Providing information, understanding, as AI and other tools get better, they'll be able to then enhance the, how better that augmented reality experience can then enhance the procedure.
And the efficiency of the surgeon.
Yeah, over time, right?
The only thing I would say is that I think there would be a little bit of anxiety when you go from training to real, like anything, right? It's like
100%.
It's like, and I'm just using this as a bad example, but it is an example. You go to war, you're out there at the shooting range, you're shooting at a range. That's different when they're shooting back at you.
Yeah,
it's a different concept.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, but to your point, it's the more reps you get in that simulation environment,
the more efficient you become.
Absolutely.
That's true.
And you can start to, I've seen this, especially with augmented reality, where they're using AI to leverage your predictability and your movements to then enhance, to scale up the experience or scale it down, especially in training, right? If you're worked with a company that did police officer training,
right,
and they were helping officers for school shootings and other things, right? Which is just a terrible experience. Which is
a crazy reality that we have to talk about in life, right? Yeah.
But training someone to understand, to not be like Uvalde, who, the officers were sitting outside waiting to go in.
Right.
They would understand and simulate what it would take to do that. And again, terrible situation, but at the end of the day, if you don't train officers for this, they're not going to know how to react.
It's a real situation. It's happened too many times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, in this software that I speak of, the AI they had a neural engine built into the software that would understand how you're responding to the training, and they could intensify it if they needed to, or kind of scale it down a little bit just to make sure that they're meeting you at where you're at.
Right.
So all that to say that augmented reality is a technology that will be ubiquitous to our life at some point. There is a tech stack and some things that need to work its way up. Like they've all got to fall into place.
Yeah.
Right. But at the end of the day, it's going to give us that smartphone experience that we have today, but with a heads-up display.
In life.
Yes.
Right? Basically in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that's a great way of describing it, actually, because it's easier to describe it that way for people to kind of apply it to themselves, whereas when you start using the words like meta, Internet 3.0, like all those things kind of become abstract. But when you kind of try to bring it in or apply it that way, it becomes easier to digest. Not just for like generations, but even like you got the young kids that they think all the tech is cool, but they don't understand what the grand plan is, right? They understand it's just cool now because I play video games like that, but there's bigger uses for it. Right?
Absolutely, and I'll give you an example of where, and playing video games has helped me in one way or another.
Okay.
Right, I used to play a lot of Grand Theft Auto, and growing up, when I moved to New York City, I'm driving around
living in Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, this is Grand Theft Auto. It kind of created that subconscious understanding of the grid system. And and so I move here and I'm like, oh yeah, I know how to drive here. I just can't go, jack someone's car and drive their car.
I can't kill nobody. I can't do this. I get it.
But all that helps, how we build muscle memory, how we help kind of build how we react to experiences.
And almost like the learning curve, right? It kind of reduces the learning curve.
Yeah. And part of it is that growing up, I was told, oh, you're either a visual or an audio learner.
Okay.
But really, kinesthetic learning is how we learn best, using most, if not all of your senses,
right,
to be able to understand the situation and perceive the kind of how to respond or react in a situation, but not just in like a simulation type environment, but also in learning.
Right. When
you're learning about physics or chemistry and understanding, depth and length and all these different visual things that you can apply versus analog, just writing it down and creating the equation, like it gives you a better understanding of why this is important, why this is the way that it is.
Right. Okay. I get it. I agree on that. All right, let's go to closers.
Yeah.
We're kind of leading up to it, right?
Yeah.
So closers, let's talk about it. It's your app?
Yeah. So fun fact, me and my other two co-founders, we met during the Beats days.
Okay.
Right? In that time frame.
You maintain relationships during that time?
Absolutely. Maintain relationships. We met then, kept in touch. I was kind of helping them with, they were bringing another app to market. So I was just like supporting them during their journey.
Right.
And about 2.5 years ago, we came up with, a concept of what it would be and started to tinker around with it. And really where we're at today and what Closers is a software as a service platform. So SaaS product that helps.
You and your acronyms, Cole. I gotta say, you got a lot of acronyms.
A lot of acronyms, yes.
We're gonna have like definitions after this. At the end, we're gonna have like a credit of Darren, you hear me? We're gonna have to have like all the acronyms. So people are gonna refer. We're like, what? Okay.
So SaaS product that helps enterprise customers, right? Businesses, gamify an experience for their sales team.
Right.
And really what we've done is we've done a lot of research into game theory and understanding gaming mechanics that are used in anything from a video game to, the checkout experience when you're buying something online.
Okay.
Right? If you look at the little progress bar, you've got like those 4 steps.
Right.
That's technically gamification.
Okay.
But applying game theory really helps people understand or resonates with what the last 25, 30, longer, 35, 40 years of gaming has really been. Is, you do something, it has an outcome, you achieve that outcome over time, over and over, you win the game, or, you reach this greater outcome.
Right. Unlock potential.
Yes. And so really get to the meat of it. We have created gamification, a gamification tool for sales teams, and we provide the ability for sales teams to compete head to head against each other on a week to week basis to introduce competition, motivation, and ultimately competitive culture into what is already. Sales in general is competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so we see that by delivering this SaaS product to market, we can help sales teams get better and perform better. And so how did we come to this hypothesis? Just to give you some context. My other two co-founders had created a CRM. They have a CRM platform. And they started to understand that when people interact, CRM adoption is already low. People are constantly struggling to get their teams to leverage this tool.
Right.
It's an admin tool. People are not motivated.
People busy doing the work.
Yeah.
So like I mean, I fall victim to setting up the informational or setting up the graph and giving the data is the hardest part. But what becomes essentially useful or give you insight that you'll never thought of before is as you revisit it later, you have hard numbers. It's not like, I think, like, yo, I'm down or I'm up or why. And then you start really honing in what was going on in that part of my life. You start like really kind of seeing the big picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that data is so critical to understanding who your customer is, how they react to certain products, messages, or motions that you put into the market, right? We talked a lot about promotions.
Yeah.
And how do you measure efficacy, or how is your product being responded to by the market? Ultimately, companies use a CRM to capture majority of that information and also have the details around a customer or client to then, follow up with new products or
see if
so
it's a
on.
fit. You have almost like a profile.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
And so CRMs obviously is something that most companies use in some degree to manage their customer base. And so what we've done is we built a standalone app that uses API integrations into those CRMs.
API integrations.
Yeah.
The acronym.
Yes.
You want to expand on it?
Yeah. So in the developer world, your APIs is how one software talks to another.
Okay. I
Right?
knew that. No, I didn't.
Yeah. And so as all of these softwares are coming to market, they're all using APIs to communicate
Okay.
and sending information from one platform to the other. And what we've done is we've created a standalone product that can service any, majority of the CRMs that are in market. And our beta launch, which we launched late last year,
Okay.
has the ability to tap into some of the largest, whether it's Salesforce, HubSpot. I mentioned my co-founders, they have their own CRM called the Outfield app.
The Outfield app. Okay.
Anything that your sales team is doing on these platforms, we can then take that information and create a point attribution towards that action. It's a point action. So whether you're calling leads, scheduling meetings with clients, creating follow-ups, all of
You're
that
creating
is
a metric for movement, basically,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And so what we could do is we can quantify all of that on the back end and then create a point system that as a sales manager or some organizational leader can then define what to assign points to. Then we do all of the processing. It's automated, where then we can create head-to-head matchups. So you've got a roster of, let's say, a sales team of 10, 50, 100, 1,000. We can take that roster of employees and we've got an algorithm that will match you up against, Omar, I'm against you this week. So I know you're competitive, put up a triple double last night.
You know I did.
I'm coming for the belt. And our tool allows us to then work with the company to define, how do you want to rank your teams? Maybe you've got a mix of SDRs, account managers, sales managers. We can then create different settings to ensure that they're competing at an even level, right? Giving them like a mulligan.
Okay.
And so it's done really well in adopting in certain industries, whether it is the mortgage and real estate industry that we talked about.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of adoption in the cannabis industry.
Okay. That's an emerging market too.
Absolutely.
So it's a really good time to get to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we've seen other industries like automotive, financial. The financial industry is a big one naturally it's just competitive.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of testosterone.
Yes. And what we've seen is that so we did a white paper study to 100 sales managers that are managing large sales teams. And we asked them certain characteristics about how do they influence culture, how do they motivate and incentivize their reps. And 90% of those managers came back and said that gamification is something that they're actively deploying or that they're actively seeking out to introduce as something, as a tool to help drive the company culture.
When you mean gamification, you mean competition.
Competition.
Right? Okay,
Yes.
let's be very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whether they don't have an app, but they'll be like, whoever gets the most, whatever this week wins this.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ultimately that is, everyone's got to be driving towards some achievement, outcome, especially in sales.
Yeah, some result.
Some result. Right?
Yeah, either,
absolutely.
like they used to say back in the day, either they hang up on you or they close. That's it. Yeah, it's two results. That's all you two we're gonna accept here. Either they hang up on you or you close. That's it.
Yeah. And so we've built this standalone app. We're now getting into, as we're in our beta stage, we've been working with customers that have some different CRMs. And now we've started to open it up as we go into full production from beta. We're going to be able to expand how many endpoints can we connect to, whether they're using Slack for communication or they're using, Dropbox or something to deliver collateral to customers, right? We can start to look at other ways of measuring all of their activities and quantifying it and assigning points. And we think that's going to be very valuable because at the end of the day, we have to meet customers where they're at,
where they're comfortable.
Right.
Yeah,
and ultimately they're already deploying some of these tactics, but we're providing that automation for them.
Right.
But look at what is the majority of the workforce today. Millennials just took over as the majority, the dominant player in the workforce.
Absolutely. Their age is up. Their age is like basically on deck.
Absolutely. Right. And if you look at millennials, their whole lives, they've been playing video games or interacting with some type of gaming mechanism.
Correct.
So we're introducing game theory and meeting them where they're at, applying some of these behaviors into their work, their day-to-day work, and creating a healthy competition for them to excel in their role and elevate the culture. So it's
gaming culture.
Gaming culture.
Yeah, the gaming culture. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's more and more, you're starting to see this in other industries and other aspects of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think as we progress as a culture, gaming will not just be considered console gaming or, what it is today. It'll be more of something that is introduced in other aspects of our lives.
Yeah. Gaming translates over everything. Like anything can be a game.
Yes.
In my household in particular, it's very competitive. Everything becomes a game. Like who did more, or who scored most, or who lifted that most heavyweight, or but it's like you said, there has to be that culture in the person for it to really, really bloom. Some people shy away from it because they don't like losing, and that's okay. But if you don't try, you lost already.
Yeah.
To me, anyway. Like no shot at anybody, but that's how I feel. Like if you're not even trying, just
100%.
Go make your. I don't know. That's gonna be too me. I'm not gonna put that on there. Yeah.
No, but you're right. I think that in order to motivate people, you've got to use different tactics and different tools.
Yeah.
So we're introducing something that is a tool that automates this and puts it front and center. We've got a leaderboard and it's dynamic. So as things change, as you're closing deals or things are happening, that leaderboard will move. And we're also, with our notifications, we're letting people know, hey, you're down for the week.
What are you doing?
Get your reps up.
Yeah, what are you doing? Yeah, absolutely.
We're trying to change behavior is really ultimately what we're doing, and in a benefit towards the culture and the organizational benefit. And that's where we think we have a really sweet spot of kind of being this hybrid. And we talked about it, culture and business, where it kind of mixes.
Yeah. If you can integrate, or if you can, the word is infiltrate somebody's way of life, and in terms of business, just so they can kind of see it clearly. Like the more you do, the more results you get, whether they're positive or negative. That's another conversation. But I get a lot of shit because I talk a lot of shit on Instagram about guys, working out, but these are all my friends that I know. That's just the way that maybe that's my generation, but it's all negative reinforcement, right? Like, and that's all it is. And they come at me too, but you got to have that armor. Like, this is the game. So you're doing it in a much more constructive way, which is basically points and and nurturing. Yes. If you think about it, because you're saying, hey man, you didn't do this, you should do it. Blah, blah. And as crazy as it sounds, you look at your phone, you get a notification, you kind of almost feel compelled.
Yes.
Right? Like, oh, I have a meeting tomorrow. Like like it told me. So like, I'm down. I didn't work enough. It told me. So yeah, I can see how that would work, especially for millennials, because they're used to that interaction.
Yes.
Yeah, they're used to that.
And ultimately it's something that you're held accountable. Mm-hmm. You're looking at how you stack against your peers. You're looking at how you're competing head to head against your colleague. There's nowhere to hide.
Right.
And ultimately, that's where people tend to fall into their comfort zone is, I'm going to do just enough to
get by.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
just enough to not get in trouble.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this puts you, every week.
Front
and center.
Yeah.
And it also becomes a management tool on the back end for a sales manager or an organization to understand who are their top performers, bottom half performers. All of these analytics can then be applied. Mm-hmm. And we're something that I'm excited, and we talked a little bit about it, is as we're gaining traction in the mortgage industry, we see an opportunity to create what we're calling like an interleague play.
Right.
Where your rep can compete against someone else's performer, right? Mm-hmm. And create the competition to the next level. Because ultimately, one of our clients, he's got 50 employees across the state of California.
Okay.
And they're dispersed all over. He's trying to keep that culture.
Trying to centralize them.
Centralize it, yeah.
Even if it's virtually, it's not in person. Because there's something to it. I don't want to take away anything from your app, but there's a magic of collaboration when people get in a room. Just
without a doubt.
I don't know why. Just energy, hormone, whatever. Because people, I don't know if it's competitive. I just know we met today. I'm gonna bring my A game. This is what I'm doing. You guys kind of see it, and it kind of it gets the juices flowing. So to get it virtually, and then I'm sure they'll figure out a way to every quarter, every half a quarter, half a year, put them all in the same room together. I think that really galvanizes the culture.
Yeah.
But this definitely keeps people connected, because that's a challenge. I have people that work for me that one works in Denver, Long Island, two in Long Island, Bronx, Manhattan, one in Jersey now. So we're close that if we wanted to meet every day, we could, but that's an extra hour, 2 hours of travel time. Now you factor that in. Now it becomes is it worth it?
Absolutely.
It's a tough one. Yeah, it's a tough one.
And one other piece that I'll mention is we've also worked with companies around how to create the right incentives and how to motivate people, because not everyone's going to be motivated by a leaderboard or head-to-head competition or winning the whole thing, right? So we worked with a medical company who deployed our software as motivation and to gamify the work experience, but then they deployed some incentives, quarterly prizes, and then we had an annual vacation package.
Okay. So a carrot, right?
We got the stick, they put the carrot.
Yeah, you got the carrot, right.
And what we did was we were constantly communicating, hey, are you going to be the one to get this prize? We created that, we dangled the carrot.
Hey, you're close.
Yes. And ultimately it created this healthy competition amongst the team. We did some really cool prizes as well, while we were giving quarterly incentives, first, second, third place. And then ultimately someone won, a $5,000 vacation.
Nice.
And that company saw significant, not only increase in performance, but they adopted the tool better, like their CRM tool, they adopted that better. The utility and utilization of their CRM was better. They were getting better data. Mm-hmm. They were getting better performance. And ultimately, for a fraction of the cost that they invested into it, their sales and productivity saw significant
better
increase.
results, better bottom line.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And not to say that while doing our homework, we found out that the gentleman who won was a big Cowboys fan.
Okay.
So we got a Darren Woodson shout out from the Hall of Fame cornerback from Dallas Cowboys.
And you sent that to him.
Sent it to him.
That's great.
He
must have loved it.
That was the cherry on top.
Well, I think you're using your application, what you did at Beats with this app. That's what you're doing. You're creating an experience, right?
It has to be an experience.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it'll be a success, because people, if they feel it's for them, it's not just for the masses. It was done almost custom for them. They get endeared. They become loyal, then they become fanatical, and then you get it. Like they're in it for the long haul. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And ultimately, as you look at whether it's a small business, medium-sized business, corporation, building culture is culture is the foundation of your business. Without culture, you will see high attrition, you will see low motivation, and just people will not be as inclined to go the extra mile. But when culture is a core focus and you're constantly asking, because culture is the people, right? You have to ask people to contribute to the culture.
Right.
This becomes kind of a neural central point in the culture, where now you're not only holding people accountable, but you're implementing a tool that helps them understand their response, how they're performing is showing up in the app.
Right.
And so it's been a really cool journey to see this, and we're excited to continue to evolve it. I think we've got some interesting ways of making it more dynamic, more engaging.
What's the you used an analogy before? I want you to say it. You guys are going to be the what of what?
Now you put me on the spot. We're going to be the what did I say?
The ESPN of.
Oh yeah. So actually you bring up a good point, right? So we'll talk about.
I listen, bro. I really listen.
No, and I appreciate you saying that, because that talks into a little bit about our media side.
Correct.
Right? So in this journey of building our application, we've also been trying to build out a brand around closers.
Right.
Closers means pretty much it's ubiquitous to a lot of industries, right? In your industry, the automotive industry, the financial, the financial industry,
the legal industry.
Yeah.
Anything. Yeah.
If you're a closer, you're a top performer. So what we've done is that we've built a media brand and a media arm to this. That is the ESPN to the NBA, right? ESPN 24/7, putting out content on what? On a 2-hour game.
Right. And they're making up shit to talk about at certain points, because what do you think he's doing? I don't know. What do you think he's doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Stephen A. Smith has made $40 million of doing that.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And ultimately what we've done is that to complement our app, in the app itself, our content feeds into it. So when you're seeing the, your performance or your head-to-head matchups, your leaderboard, there's a tab where you can look at and watch media. And so we've been building out media similar to your podcast, and where we're bringing on entrepreneurs and, inspiring business, executives to narrate their story. Because success is something that doesn't come overnight, but everyone's got their own recipe, their own version of it.
Their own angle, how they approach it, right? Yeah. And people love to hear the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. At the end, my personal opinion, my humble opinion, people don't want to have their own story. They just want to get to the end. They just want to be a success. But people love hearing the story. They love empathizing / sympathizing with the struggle. They see the reflection of their own experiences in it. But then there's that holy disconnect where they don't understand why. Going back to what I think I told you at the coffee shop, where you gotta play the hand you're dealt. You gotta figure it out. These are my cards.
Absolutely.
How am I gonna win? Right? You gotta figure it out. That's the magic piece where I feel like a lot of people get lost. They're like, yeah, he's just like me, man. He started here and then and look at him. He's $1 million. And I'm like, why not you? Yeah. That becomes the question. Not to go off my tangent, but I saw the connection I wanted to talk about.
Absolutely. And I think ultimately what we want to do is we're using our platform to drive accountability, motivation, culture. And we think with media, we can...
A dose of inspiration.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay, I got it.
And so we've been fortunate to have phenomenal guests on our show, whether they're, entrepreneurs themselves or business executives, and anything in between, where we've been able to captivate an audience by storytelling.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think that is our greatest gift as humanity, the ability to tell stories and share with others.
Right.
So we've created Closers Coffee, which is the podcast, as an extension of the Closers app to feed those narratives in and help generate that inspiration. And thankfully, we've.
Well, how's that one working? Just so just for people to know.
Yeah.
Have people liking it? Who doesn't want to learn? See, my thing is almost it goes back to the concept of I've spoken to a couple of different people. You speak a lot about having mentors and stuff like that. I never had a mentor. I always had people who needed something that I had, and instead of being cynical and upset about it, I then switched it and made it an educational piece for me. So I gave what they needed, I took what I needed. And that's how I kind of got to where I'm at right now. But people, they tend to see that, it can never be me. It can never be this. But I'm telling them all the time, and I know I preach this all day. I was like, it could definitely be you. You just got to figure it out, bro.
Yeah.
You got to figure it out.
Well, 100%. And to me, winning the war in your mind is the biggest battle you'll ever fight.
That's where it starts. Yeah, absolutely.
If you tell yourself, whether you're right or wrong, what you believe is what you will perceive. If you think you're right or you think you can do something, then that's going to push you to go do it.
Yep.
And ultimately, to your point, people need to hear and see it from someone else's lens to then craft their own narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I remember perfect example is I recently had Thomas Fields, who's the CEO of Grind.
Mm-hmm.
You're a basketball fan. I'm a huge basketball fan.
Yeah.
This guy had 4 knee replacements in high school.
Damn.
He was top 50 in the state and saw his dreams diminish.
Go away from him, yeah.
And he had every dream of, going to play D1 and hopefully get into the league.
To the A, yeah.
Yeah. And he faced this adversity at a very young age in his life and realized that in that journey, he found a problem he could go solve. So he was, to summarize it, his basketball coach had bought one of those shooting machines that throws the ball back to you.
Mm-hmm.
They're like $10,000.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And only NBA teams have them.
Right.
He felt like, well, why can't I make that? Why can't I build that?
At a price point.
At a
much
price.
Less. Right.
Yeah. And has done it and has gone to be successful and is, I say he's an engineer, an entrepreneur, and he made his first mill at the age of 26.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's great.
That is inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And those are the stories that whether you resonate with his story or you've had passion for basketball or you've always wanted to be an engineer, you can.
Well, forget that. Not even basketball and like that. If you've had a physical impairment that you've had to overcome, and everybody has at some point in life, that because when you're going through a physical limitation or physical, let's say, pain, it bleeds into your mental.
Yeah.
And if your mental's not strong enough to withstand, it will change your DNA.
Absolutely.
Right? So just take a guy who thought he was going to the A, and again, going back to what I said, deal the cards you were dealt, right? He's like, all right, so this might not happen, but you know what? That machine, and he pivoted, and look at him now.
Yeah.
Right? He could have went another way. He could have been like, oh, I hate the NBA, and they did this to my knee, and bro, nobody knows who you are. You're in high school. But that's how it can be. The victim mentality is real. People can come up with that and figure out 85 different ways of why it shouldn't happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I say this all the time. Pity's a drug.
Right. Right.
And a lot of people are hooked on it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I like that one. Yeah.
It's one of your mindset dictates your trajectory and the outcomes in your life. It just is what it is. And I face a lot of that in early age, I would say early adolescent years.
Mm-hmm.
I had to overcome it. I had to figure out a way to forge my way into the things that I was interested or appealed to me. So I think in general, story sharing and hearing some of these narratives and understanding the adversity that someone else has to face and realizing that If they can overcome that, you can overcome whatever you're facing. That's what really has changed my mindset, has changed my view on life. And not to say that I don't struggle with those thoughts daily.
Right.
You know, I read a book, Winning the War in Your Mind.
Mm-hmm.
500 unwanted thoughts enter your mind daily. They last about 14 seconds. That's almost 2 hours a day of unwanted thoughts. Not all of them are negative.
Right. But just nothing you dictated.
Nothing you dictated.
Mm-hmm.
And they have, when you get into a toxic rut, it pumps dopamine and it pumps in primitive feelings, right? Primitive feelings of survival, shelter, nurturing, all these things that it's just a thought.
Right.
But they're impacting
physical manifestation.
Yes.
Right.
And so if you're battling that daily and you're not winning the war on your mind, you're not going to win the war on the street.
Right. The war outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. The war inside is definitely real. It's something that's been coming up more and more, not with just podcast guests, but just people in general. I think there's because there's more of a, I would say, there's a more acceptance of that, right? I've been seeing so many images lately, but going back to what you're saying, when people see stories, and one of the reasons for the whole podcast for me was more about people seeing somebody that might, whether it be me or you or any of my guests, that they might look like, and then when you kind of look like somebody, you can kind of see yourself there, right? It becomes, I can go deep dive into this, but I'm not gonna, I always talk about the same shit. But the lack of representation in media over the years has led to such a quasi-warped way of viewing the world. Now with the internet, the good news is that we can then push out our own information. The bad news is that everybody can push out their own information. So now you have to have some sort of understanding to kind of like trudge through the garbage, right? And the hype and people who are trying to steer you to something and, all that. But I still think if for the people that are trying to find their truth or trying to find that inspiration, or trying to find that connection, one of the most helpful things is somebody who kind of looked like them or came from where they came from, or how they can just kind of like just look up for a second and be like, oh shit, it just resonates.
Yeah.
That connection, like I was telling you about before, I think that's the most important piece that we can do as entrepreneurs, besides making money and helping people. That's cool. But showing people the way, right? I'm not going to break it step by step, and everybody's path is going to be different, but showing, we all start somewhere. And the first step is the first step anywhere you are.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think representation does matter.
Yeah.
When you look at media and you look at how things have been presented to us as a society, there has been a large amount of misrepresentation of what society looks like, or what, even in communities, what communities look like. And ultimately, at a young age, that matters. Matters in your self-identification. It matters in understanding what dreams and aspirations you can have, what titles and, what life you can live. And I think it's something when you especially look at Black and brown communities, it's, I'm gonna go to the league, or I'm gonna be an actor, or I'm gonna be, in the streets.
That's my only way out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's where places like this and your media outlet and some of the things that I've tried to incorporate and how we represent media is showing people of a diverse background that ultimately you can be what you aspire to be, whether it's finding mentorship or it's working within your community to be inspired. Mm-hmm. I'll give you this. I've been fortunate to have mentors in my life, and whether it was family members or, business mentors and so on, I've had the opportunity to learn from them. One of the things that really swayed me into tech was my uncle was in tech. Got an uncle. I've got actually 2 uncles that are mentors and just strong men in my family. And they were always trying to influence me, not to go that route, but they were just showing me what they were working on or explaining to me some of the things that was in their day-to-day lives. And it's just funny that that's where I ended up being,
Yeah.
right? Without a direct influence, but there was some underlying influences there. And, I think when I look at just community in itself, you've got to give. You've got to give back to your community. You've got to always help the next person up, because if they can skip 1 or 2 steps in the process, or at least get better in 1 or 2 steps in the process, then your job has been done. You have helped.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I also add that I truly believe that you get what you expect. And what I mean by that is if and this is no shot at anybody, just if sanitation is the way you want to go because you make $150,000 a year, you have benefits, you have this, you have that, then that's where you're going to go, right? You're going to go for it, take the test, and that's your thing. You want to be a police officer. I think they just got a raise recently. Same thing. Pension. Most people do it for the 20 years and out. If you listen to the same people over and over, 20 years and I'm out, 20 years and I'm out, 20 years and I'm out. If you see people that are looking like you be doctors, it's another safe thing. You got to go through a little more school, but that becomes like what you see is what you expect to be able to do, right? Yeah. So if you don't see anybody in tech, luckily you had uncles. I don't know anybody in tech. I didn't know anybody in real estate. I was recruited to be helpful to somebody else, and then I took what I learned as my second education and applied it for myself, right? Yeah. So that another person could have been on the victim mentality. Oh, I took advantage. Listen, it's a barter. My skill set or my complexion for your time and your resources. Let's figure it out, because I'm gonna take what I learned. I'm gonna spin it in my own version. And I'm gonna do what's best for me. And if most people did that, it would change the dynamic of the whole world, right? Just the whole world, instead of just pointing fingers at who's wrong and I didn't do that and you didn't. Yeah. At the end of the day, it just has to get done. Yep. Right.
And I think today, especially, there's 2 points in.
Well, stop right there. Today is a great example. We spoke last week. You were gonna hit me on Friday. Oh, we spoke Friday. You were gonna hit me back. I didn't hear from you the whole weekend. I was like, maybe something happened, homeboy. I text you. You're like, yo, I'm on the plane. I was like, all right, bet. So, like it was like last minute. It was like, all right, but we made it happen. But you can tell people like that, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but people that get it done. That's it. It's not like, yo, you didn't hit me back, so I'm gonna do something. Yo, man, if he's available, I'm available, he's flying in, let's do it. Boom, let's knock it out. That's how doers do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's something that we talked about before we hopped on here is, just you've got to fail forward and not be, everything in life has risks. Everything in life is, you can sit here and debate timing or execution, but if you don't put that first step and then the next and the next, you ultimately, you fail yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where in my life, I've always been curious and adventurous. So like, let's do it.
Yeah, let me try.
Let's try.
Let me try. I will gain an experience, good or bad. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
And then from there, I can gauge forward.
Yeah. And one thing that I'll add that I think will help your listeners and viewers is one thing that I'm trying to get better at in this is finding time to self-reflect. We get burnt out or we get frustrated about where we're at because you're trying to go here, right? You're trying to go to your destination without not looking back to say, whoa, that's clearly not where I started.
Right.
And some also people will say that, being kind or showing empathy to yourself is complacency. No, you have to reflect. You have to have that moment to say, well, I wasn't here yesterday. I'm 1% better than I was yesterday or wherever I started. And in that journey, my aspirations or my goals have gotten bigger, but that's not to diminish or minimize what I've done to get here.
I think there was a statement that was, I think said earlier today, I think I put on the gram on my threads. That's a new app for you guys that don't know about it. Thief is a comparison of joy. Comparison is the thief of joy, right? So everybody's on their own journey and success is relative, right? Going back to my word, billionaire. You want to be a billionaire? Keep going. You want to be a millionaire? You want to have quality of life? You want to have a good relationship? You want to raise your kids? You want your kids to know who you are? Like, there's so many threads to it, right?
Yeah.
There's so many threads to it. So you have to really have a holistic view of it and understand you can have it all. It'll take longer, but at the end, you won't have that regret of I neglected these parts of my life so much in pursuit of this. And I think, there's been movies about it. There's a whole culture about it. In the 90s, it was like just work, grind your face off. And I believe my tolerance of work is higher than most because of my discipline, which is I can wake up early, I do this, I do that. But I've been really cognizant of that lately. I guess maybe it's my age, but of doing things that maybe I won't be able to do later, like play basketball with my son and go on vacation with my wife, stuff like that. Because you also want to do it while you're having this trainer I met at this boxing gym. He said your play span. So there's a lifespan. That's how long you live. Your play span is how long you're like active and can do shit, right? Because there's gonna be like 20 years that I'm all fucked up and walking a walker. It's okay. I'm expecting it. But there's that play span of your life where you want to you can really suck the air out out the atmosphere. Where you want to make it happen. And I visit a nursing home every week to see my mother, and I see a lot of people that maybe they didn't get to do their play span, and I'm like, all that's kind of forged my view of things. And I think people, you need some sort of discipline, but then you got to really understand what your why is. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I love, Chris, who that's how we've met.
Shout out to Chris Bayoso.
Yes.
Latin Wealth.
Chris, he's always talking about how your future self will thank you today. Whatever you do. Right. And I'm a firm believer that, I picked this up in a book that I read, and I can't put my finger on which one, but there's 5 selves that you have to feed. Right. And those finding balance between those selves help you really like maximize your life and your enjoyment of it. Right. Whether it's your physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, all of those selves play into who you are and how you show up. And, for the longest, I focused on 2, 3 of those
5.
Yep.
Right.
And I realized, well, there's a misbalance here.
There's 2 more facets to me that I haven't addressed yet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And identifying that whether, you're religious, spiritually, you have to understand that at the end of the day, you're here with a purpose. And that purpose will never be told to you. You will figure it out on your own. And in your spiritual self, you will then identify that you are living to your purpose.
Right.
But a lot of that is, we live in a world where instant gratification is served on a daily basis. So, people are.
There's a whole culture being raised on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And complacency is where a lot of people live. Majority of people live, right? It's in complacency. And would have, should have, could haves have always been just a thought, not an action. But taking that action and getting to at least step 1 helps you understand whether this is for me or not. And if I don't excel in this, maybe I can excel somewhere else. And I think that really just going out there and living and seeing life and enjoying it. I love traveling.
Yeah,
and
you mentioned that.
Traveling to me is a way to, feed into some of the things that I better understand cultures. I better understand, brings me empathy. It brings me a better understanding of like my bubble is just that. It's a small sphere.
There's a whole big human world out there, right? Humanity, right? And you have to learn how to like interact as well as positively appreciate. Because there's the negatives is always there. The stereotypes always there, but positively appreciate that. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned over my years is that just put yourself in the other guy's shoes for 2 seconds or other woman's shoes. Then you can see where it's coming from. And then you can talk about it. It's hard when you're just looking from your side, right? You have to look at both sides and be like, oh, I get it. All due respect, this is why I don't believe that, but I hear what you're saying and I understand. This is my understanding, what you're understanding. And it might sound like a little too much work, but that's the way to effectively communicate with each other.
Yeah. I mean, everything's multifaceted. And at the end of the day, one thing that I'm a firm believer of is, the energy you put out into the world, right? It's known, there's no scientific measurement of it, but how you vibrate, how you connect with others is solely, reflective of your inner thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that guilt, shame, blame are all low vibrating energies. So if you're walking around the world, mad at the world, blaming others, or finding excuses or having guilt, you're just putting off that energy. But if you can wake up and have a dose of DJ Khaled in you and put some...
We the best.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely.
Put some positive affirmation into the world and generate a higher vibration, that energy will be reciprocated back to you. And at the end of the day, there's an abundance of resources and just things in life. So changing your perspective from a fixed scarcity mindset to having that abundance mindset will help you vibrate at a higher energy.
Mm-hmm.
But also realizing that, trying to get to the core of where some of these thoughts derive from, whether it's therapy, it's, the men's group, shout out to Chris and what he's put together for us.
Yeah. Nice. Nice group. Absolutely.
Right. Finding those outlets in that community helps you like self-reflect on some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And, you got one life, one body.
No retakes.
No, this is it.
Yeah. There's no retakes.
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to say about vibration is that your energy speaks for you before you walk in the room, right? When you meet people, you shake somebody's hand, you kind of, I know, I read it. I'm like, okay, I can kind of see where the conversation is going to go, body language, whether it's esteem issues, whatever. Like I want to use this as almost as a Web 3.0 thing. There's a Web 3.0 existing already without technology. If you know how to read it, right? Why do some people always attract good people? Why do some people always attract people that try to take advantage of them? There's something to that. There's
Absolutely.
something to that, right? I don't know what it is, but there is something to that, right? And if you can control it and use it to your benefit, that's where you change the game.
Yeah. And I think to add to that, and this is something I've gotten better at, is understanding patterns in your lives.
Okay.
Right? Recognizing patterns in your life and then being mindful enough to implement the change to course correct or change whatever's happening, right? I'll give you a perfect example. I bartended in college. I was the life of the party. Always had, growing up, college, post-college, all that, right? I was always the life of the party. But I realized that there was some cyclical events in my life that were happening, and the underlying tone was alcohol.
Okay.
And I said,
That's a hard look.
That's a hard look.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when you start to weigh out pros and cons. And so I made the call. I said, listen, if I want this to never occur again, I've got to eliminate the common denominator. And so removed alcohol out of my life, and I just can't tell you how it just introduced more positive into my life than the negatives. And it was awkward and it was hard at first, right?
Okay.
The social experiences, the people asking you why, and you just having a vague...
You got to say the same answer all the time. Right.
And really what I've learned is that alcohol is, to mass society, right? It's sold as fun and this, good time, but really for most it isn't.
For most, it's to numb the pain.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's a distraction.
Yeah.
And
Wu-Tang said that best. Wu-Tang.
Yeah.
Shout out to Wu-Tang. Yeah.
And so most things in life are a distraction. And ultimately, if you can start to remove those as you go through life, give you a second example is my father is, my twin. I could see where I'll be, 30 years from now. And there's just some ailments that are, genetic and we're pre-exposed. And one point I thought I was seeing my father, in his deathbed. And at the same time that I'm sitting here with this guilt and shame about, how I responded during, a drunken moment, right? I'm sitting there and I'm like, trying to figure out, like, how do I avoid my father, this destiny? Diabetic, has cancer scares.
How do I not follow this path?
Yeah.
Right?
How do I? And so that's where some self-reflection came in, and practically the same time frame, I stopped drinking and I went vegan.
You're totally vegan now?
Totally vegan.
Oh, wow.
And this has been 8 years. It's who I am. I don't try to go preach it to others because it's not for everyone. Right. But I realize that when I'm pre-exposed to diabetes, to cancer, and a few other things that are, genetic, I have to change something in me. And so the first year that I got the data from my doctor, he's like, I don't know what you did. It's phenomenal.
You're looking good.
Yeah, great work. Blood work's good. This and that. I was like, no, let's go deeper. Like more data, right? And so over these years, I've gained that perspective of this isn't for everyone. It's for me. It's helping me. It's had all these positive outcomes where, physically, I'm, better performer in the gym, other aspects of like just physical performance. I look younger. I feel healthier. I've removed actually toxins out of my life.
That's great.
Right? Now, granted, tough call, but it's taught me the discipline. It's taught me the dedication that I need to push forward. And sadly, I have, a family member that is like, the example of what it could lead if I deter from this path.
Right. If I didn't take myself into my own hands, right?
Yeah.
This is where I could go. Right.
And so I constantly am evaluating myself from that lens of how can I get better? 1% every day. Not every day is a great day, but if I'm constantly working on improving myself, I'm introducing that dedication, that discipline that helps me kind of self-reflect and understand how to be better. And just being honest, those are just tough calls.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you have to have the discipline to follow through. And then you have to have the self-awareness to call yourself on your own shit.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, most people don't want to do that part. That last part especially.
Accountability is just, it's just, looking at the person in the mirror and having that conversation with yourself about what challenges are you facing that are self-inflicted? What barriers are you putting in front of yourself? I currently reading Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
I read it.
Amazing book,
great
right?
Book, yeah.
And just the fact that this guy was, looking in the mirror and saying like, listen, if you want to be this in your life, you got to embrace the suck.
You got to understand it's going to be hard, but it'll be worth it. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think most people look at the destination, not the journey, is what I'm getting at.
Well, no, it's not just that. And it's in everything. It's in success stories. Nobody wants to see the journey part. It's, well, how do I get to the end? Going back to this generation we have. They're like, I'm here. I'm at A. Just skip me to Z. That's all I want.
Yeah.
All right, I have an LLC now. Let me go to Z. Oh, you have a corp now. Let me go to Z. I was like, bro, what about the whole thing? The brand, you have to make your brand. You have your client experiences. Your clients become your customers. Your customers become your fanatics. Your fanatics become your best referral sources. I was like, what about all that?
Yeah.
And I think, I have a great product. That's all I need. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And ultimately, I think it's because we're at a point now where it's really easy to compare yourself, like you said, right? Like, comparison is the thief of joy.
Absolutely.
Right? Really easy. And I've been in those positions where I've compared myself or just wondered what if in the past. And then the phone rings and it's that person. And they're asking me, what are you doing? And I'm like, whoa. Like I had that reflection point of saying like 10 years ago, however long ago, I was wondering what they were doing. Now it's flipped. And
now they're reaching out.
And to me, it's an opportunity to collaborate.
Yeah.
Because
you're in the right mind space. That's what it is. It's the mind space. You believe there's abundance. You believe there's a way for everybody to work together and synergize and go bigger. Whereas other people looking at it like it's the only last dollar in America and you want that dollar and you have my dollar and give me my dollar. I'm like, bro, there's trillions of dollars. At least you focus on that $1.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How do I take my dollar and your dollar and print 3?
Right. How do we do that?
Yeah. Now between my dollar and your dollar, we have 5. And then
now we did something.
Yeah. And so ultimately, again, back to that abundance mindset, I think it's and again, these are daily struggles for me, I'm sure for you, for everyone, right? Like you have to continuously build the habits into your life to generate success. It's not overnight. It's a marathon, and constantly you have to wake up and say, okay, I wake up every morning, try before I get my workout in, do positive affirmation, do some meditation, do things to prepare myself for the day. Well, I've already prepared the night before, right? The night before I try to set myself up.
It's the work schedule.
Yeah.
That's what you set up. Right.
Yeah, you have to.
But then you get yourself into your mind state to be right, be ready to receive, and go into your flow state to be effective. Yeah. I mean, for people that don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. It's real shit. I'm not just making these words up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you a great book to reference, and I'm jumping all over with books, but I really into reading and finding myself through literature. And there's a great book by Ben Cohen called The Hot Hand.
The Hot Hand. Okay.
And you'd love it because it talks about getting into the flow state.
Okay.
Athletes, entrepreneurs, everyone gets into a flow state, right? And that flow state is, I've gotten on the flow state on the craps table before, right? You're just
everything's rolling your way.
Yes.
Right.
And ultimately it shares how it provides the scientific method to getting the hot hand. Whether you're Steph Curry or you are the creator of NBA Jam, athletes, business entrepreneurs, all these people, they face adversity before they then hit that flow state.
Right.
And that adversity state is usually where the war in your mind is won or lost, right? But when you win the war in your mind and then you get into that flow state, you're achieving at, top peak performance.
Peak performance, everything becomes easy, right? Things that were like, I'm going to use this as an example because I'm in the business, like a deal breaker.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you found another angle on it. My personal little trick when I'm facing something adverse is I do something totally not related to what I'm doing. Like I'll go work out in the middle of the day. But when I mean work, I mean like trash myself to a point where like my RPMs or my heartbeats per minute is like 160, 170. So basically, there's no way I could be thinking about anything except what's in front of me.
Yeah.
And then you come back to it, and then you're like, oh, I didn't see that before. That's one of the tricks that I use just to give people options, because sometimes, they're like, oh, but how do you get out of that? I mean, that's just one of the things. Or other thing was I'll go buy something I needed that's nothing to do with nothing. Just totally move your mindset. Shift your focus, totally. 100% away though. Can't just be like lingering in the back of your head. You got to not be thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then when you come back, it looks different.
Absolutely. And I think taking, we're all trying to solve different problems.
Right.
Whether they're in
daily,
business, life.
Yeah.
And sometimes solving a small or different problem can help you then reframe your mindset for how to solve
a bigger problem.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And, I think when you look at, to give you the example that was given in The Hot Hand, Shakespeare wrote the majority of his plays, like the,
Romeo and Juliet,
world famous ones, right? Like the ones that we know him for today,
right.
In about an 18-month time span.
Really?
The rest were garbage.
So what was happening during those 18 months?
Well, it's funny that you say that because prior to that, there was a pandemic.
Okay.
And there was some, they were just coming out of this pandemic, and he really just honed in on, his writing structure, his narrative. There was some variables there that he realized he can control, and he had just overcome some adversity. I think like 30% of the population, some large percent of the population had died off.
Some shit went down.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
He had to zone in real quick.
Yeah. And so ultimately, like all of these just historic plays were written in such a short time span. When you think about like his legacy, and I think he lived to be like, in 40s, if not like, he had a short life, and he's recognized for this. But only 18 months of that life were truly the life-changing, game-changing periods of his time. Obviously, he then went on to, do the plays and produce them and everything. But, he got the flow state in a very short window. And decades later, centuries later, he's still
talking
renowned.
about him. Yeah.
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 So even if your flow state is in a short window, you could still maximize that benefit and leave a legacy.
Absolutely. I was going to say that myself, leave a legacy, you know, even if it's 18 months out of 50 years.
Yeah.
How crazy is that, right? Yeah. All right, Carlos, where would people find you if they need you, if they want to talk to you about the app, anything Meta, Beats, or maybe you want to jump on your podcast?
Yeah, I appreciate it. So yeah, for the Closers app, please reach out to us. You can visit closersapp.com, email us at hello@closersapp, and we'd love to help you onboard and trial or demo our product. For those that want to reach out on social media, you can reach out to us at, for me personally, Carlitos Way, or Closers App HQ. And yeah, love to connect. If you're interested on coming on Closers and telling your story, reach out to me, carlos.figarella@closersapp.com. Love to have more guests on and share more of those stories.
Carlitos Way. This guy has all the cool little things that if you know what he's talking about, you'll be like, oh, I know that movie. You guys know how to get me. Ask Louis Omar on any platform. I will be on his podcast also, so watch out for that. And I'll see you on the next one.